story short. Officer Dan Wilson fired more shots, hitting the unarmed Mr. Brown a total of 6 times in the head and right arm. The body lay in the street for 4 hours in a pool of blood before it was removed. On Monday, a grand jury ruled that they would not charge Mr. Wilson over the shooting. Mr. Brown had received his leaving certificate only 8 days before his death and had been due to start college that Monday. His mother, Leslie McSpadden, told reporters that the family had never had the time to celebrate her son's school leaving. Instead, they had to organize a funeral. Civil rights. Reverend Al Sharpton, who is the leader of the civil rights movement, had vowed to pursue justice. Reverend Sharpton is an outspoken and sometimes controversial political activist in the fight against racial prejudice and injustice. Michael Brown was shot and killed on 9th August, and it started a lot of protest. Civil rights leader Reverend Al Sharpton, who attended a new conference with Mr. Brown's family, said the jury had broken our hearts, but he vowed to continue to fight for a new level of accountability of policing in the country. Violent protests were not in the spirit of Michael Brown. Mr. Sharpton added, saying the young man would not be remembered for ashes of buildings burning in Ferguson. Instead, he said Mr. Brown's family would push for new legislation to protect citizens and support a Michael Brown law that required all police officers to wear body video cameras.
Hey, I'm back to tell you more about the Ferguson shooting and how it had become more than the killing. This episode have grown into something even bigger. It's not only the fact that Michael was an African American and Officer Darren Wilson is white, but that Officer Wilson wasn't found guilty in shooting and killing Mr. Brown. And 2 reasons he had for doing what he did was he felt like he held on to Hulk Hogan, the US wrestler. And the second one was that he felt threatened, so that makes it okay. But people assumed that if everything was the complete opposite, that you had an Afro-American officer shooting a white teen, the officer would be sent to jail. Of course, the white boy would still have been dead, but yeah, if it was an Afro-American officer, he would go to jail. But because Officer Wilson is white, and he told that he felt threatened, it was completely okay, which it's not. Afterwards, he said that he had a clean conscience, and Mrs. Leslie McSpadden, who is Michael Brown's mom, wasn't amused by this comment and asked out in public, like, how could he had a clean conscience when he almost just have killed another man? Later he explained, after a long while of being silent, he explained that the reason he had a clean consciousness was because he knew he did his job right. I'm no officer, but your job is not killing other people. And the aftermath led to major riots and protests around the US have occurred due to this, because they were led to they believed that justice was not served that day, but it was rather injustice that had been served by doing this. And the On Thanksgiving, the protesters have been rather peaceful in Ferguson. Maybe it was due to the holiday spirit of Thanksgiving. But there were, however, more than 100 people arrested in demonstrations in Los Angeles and Oakland, California. The police said that the protesters vandalized businesses in Oakland and refused to despise in Los Angeles, where the most of the arrests took place. And in Portland, Oregon, police used pepper spray and made arrests after about 300 people interrupted public transport routes early on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. Protesters had tried to storm City Hall in St. Louis, Missouri. Some US celebrities are reportedly calling for a boycott to take place on Black Friday, which is the day after Thanksgiving, and is one of the country's biggest shopping days after Thanksgiving, over what the grand jury had been ruling, about finding Officer Wilson not guilty in this. And now Vladimir would like to continue about what our opinion are about the Ferguson shooting.
The media doesn't actually come up with that many facts about the story, but try to make a tense mood among the Ferguson residents with stories that bring up emotion and feelings in the viewer instead of actual facts. For example, the video about how the families are handling the situation and other similar stories. Therefore, it is really hard to come up with actual opinion about the shooting, since there are so many different sides of the story from different people, and it seems as if everyone has a point. The Ferguson shootings and riots tell a lot about the United States. It shows the rest of the world how America is still segregated by race, or at least is really easily affected by racial collision. It impacts America in a way that makes it look divided between races, which is bad for America, since the country is really patriotic.